Hi, everyone.
I'm Bob Grip.
Thank you for joining us. And we start with new information.
The story of Bob Grip's career is also our story. It's a story that began in the mid-70s.
When I was in graduate school, I started working at a station in Columbus, Ohio. And I met a fellow who was the 11 o'clock anchor there. And he said, hey, I'm going to be a news director down south. And if you need a job when you get out of grad school, call me. I thought, boy, this TV business is easy. All you have to do is call somebody up and get a job. I was wrong. I called him up after I got out of grad school. He said, come down here and be a reporter. And there I was. I looked on a map to find out where Mobile, Alabama was. When I first started to get into TV news, we were still shooting film that had to be processed. And then we did a quick transition to videotape. And you had clunky equipment, and it was heavy. And on the weekends when I would anchor, I was the reporter, I was the weather guy, I was the sports guy. My wife came along with me. Very often she's carrying a tripod or she's helping run the teleprompter. She didn't get paid for any of that, but I'm really grateful that she did.
One of the biggest stories Bob covered in the early years was Hurricane Frederick.
I hope I never see another storm like Frederick. I could hear the roof of the building vibrating. And I remember telling the audience, I think the worst of the storm is upon us now. And almost by cue, all the power died. Whoosh. Eventually, we got power on because of a generator and had to do the news outside on the sidewalk. It was hot. And still, the sound of chainsaws make me think back to Hurricane Frederick and how miserable that was and how miserable it made life for everybody.
Here's why we're here. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Grip. Segregation.
In the 80s, Bob quickly established himself as the go-to anchor on the Gulf Coast. He traveled the world to get important stories, including a trip to the Vatican and a meeting with Pope John Paul II.
After a mass that we videotaped at the Vatican, there was a chance where the Pope was going through a receiving line. He was going through pretty quickly. So as the Pope came by, I was watching the interaction. I thought, I have to do something to stop him in his tracks. So I spoke Slavic to him because it was what my grandmother used to speak.
This is our television commentator from Mobile.
Slava Isus Christ.
And it did. It stopped him because everybody else was speaking English to him. And he started to respond back and forth, back and forth. He had an aura about him where you could almost see that he was going to be a saint someday, which he turned out to be. I think communism fell because of a lot of what he did.
5 years later, Bob was in Kuwait, taking part in a special remembrance.
This happened after the end of the first Gulf War, and the government of Kuwait wanted to honor the families of those who died, and the government of Kuwait flew everybody over and honored all of these people with, they gave them medals, they had big dinners. It was just an enormous way of the Kuwaiti government saying thank you to the people who lost spouses over in the first Gulf War. I'd never been to the Middle East before, never been up to the border with Iraq, which was a hostile party at that time. To be able to see things firsthand is one of the benefits of being in this business, where you don't just read about it, you can see it, you can feel it.
Instill confidence.
You mean because of the base closing operation?
Over the years, Bob covered a number of presidents and a governor's resignation.
Where we expect Governor Robert Bentley to resign.
He's seen the shift from that clunky, heavy equipment to handheld reporting.
Going to London was probably the most fun I had in terms of using technology, because I was shooting basically a series of stories and I had no camera, I had no photographer, so I shot everything with my iPhone, I edited everything on my iPad, put it in Dropbox, sent it back to the station. It cost nothing to send the stories back here to Mobile. Technology has been, I think, my friend. I love to play with toys. I never outgrew the need to play with toys.
Through it all, the word anchor always fit him perfectly.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good night.